There are so many informations within clause number 6 concerning the quality of the materials and workmanship. For better understanding, you may refer to the flowchart here, which is the simplified versions in understanding the situations. First, we know that we have the contract document. The quality of the works and the materials will have to comply to the specifications and requirements as per stated in the contract document. Second, we know that the architect is the contract administrator. The architect will have to ensure that the conditions of the contracts are honored, and the contractor will need to provide materials and workmanship as per the quality stated in the contract. Now, under these circumstances, the architect has the right to check and to confirm whether the materials and the workmanship are up to the quality. The architect may make requests to the contractor at various stages before the commencement of the work or after the work has already been done. There are two parts of the request that architect can make, which the architect can request for the informations to prove the material being supplied is up to the standard, or the architect may request for the material samples to be tested to confirm whether the material supply is up to the standard. If the work has already been done, the architect can call for inspection and testing. Whichever cost incurred due to the inspection and testing work, it will be dependent on the qualities of the materials, whether it meets the specifications, in order to decide whether it is claimable by the contractor. Now let us look at the flowchart here. Before the commencement of the work, architect can request for the relevant informations of the material. Normally, the construction materials have their vouchers or relevant specifications as per given by the manufacturers or suppliers. Based on those specifications, the architect will know whether the provided materials are up to the quality. The contractor will need to provide the relevant informations on the material quality to the architect. This happens when the architect do not have the relevant informations, and the architect will check the specifications of the provided materials against what is stated in the contract to decide whether to accept or to reject. Let's say now the information given shows that the materials are not meeting the requirement. Therefore, the architect will reject the materials. The contractor will have to propose an alternative to replace the initial one until the proposed material meets the requirement and being accepted by the architect. This will lead to a looping process if the materials is being rejected. Next, the architect may also request the contractor to provide the samples of material to be tested before being used in the project, and whether the materials is to be accepted or rejected, it will be dependent on the outcome of the testing. Let's say now the provided material does not meet the requirement. The architect has the right to reject, and the contractor will need to provide alternative materials in replacement to the substandard materials. It will be until the provided materials meeting the requirement, the looping stops. Now that the material passed the testing, the contractor is allowed to proceed with the work. The architect may also request, once the work has already been done, to do inspections and testing of the work. There are two possible outcomes, whether the result shows that the requirements are met or the requirements are not met. Let's say the requirements are met. the cost of the testing and rectifications of those testing works will be claimable by the contractor. And this is subjected to whether the relevant cost has already been incorporated in the contract bill as per stated in the statement here. In general, the cost for the testing and making good of those for the testing is claimable. Let's say now the requirement is not met. That means this is default by the contractor. The contractor has no ground to claim for the cost of the testing, and thus the cost of the testing is not claimable. It will be bound by the contractor as a consequence of not providing the workmanship or materials up to the standard as per stated in the contract. There are three categories of the possible outcome. As a result of the requirements are not being met, this will be the architect instructions subjected to the situations. Either one may be requested by the architect. The first possible outcome is the architect requests to remove or to demolish and reconstruct or to rectify the work. All the costs will be borne by the contractor. This is rather straightforward. The contractor will have to comply. If the contractor is reluctant to comply, the employer or the architect may ask somebody else to do the work, and the relevant costs will be offset by the employer. One way or another, the contractor will have to pay for the work. Second, the architect may request the contractor to submit method statement. This is when the architect chooses to give flexibility to the contractor in terms of the solutions as preferred by the contractor. However, the relevant solutions must be agreed or accepted by the architect. Architect will check the method of statement, and if it is accepted by the architect, the contractor may proceed with the rectifications in accordance to the method statement. However, if the proposed method statement is rejected by the architect, that means the architect is not satisfied with the solutions given by the contractor, then the architect will make it clear what kind of solutions will be requested. As a result, the architect will issue the instructions to the contractor, and the contractor is to comply. If the contractor refuses to comply, the employer or the architect may hire somebody else to do the work. The relevant costs will be offset from the payments to the contractor. At the end of the day, the contractor will have to bear the costs for the rectifications. Another possible outcome is the architect asks the contractor to leave it unrectified. In this case, the contractor will be liable for the defects or for the consequences of not meeting the standards. It will be up to the decisions of the employer whether to accept the substandard material or to ask somebody else to rectify it. If somebody else is being asked to rectify it, the relevant cost will be charged to the contractor, and thus the employer can offset the payment. It is also possible for the employer to accept the substandard quality as delivered by the contractor. With that, the employer can offset also from the contractor as the compensations to whichever not meeting the requirement by the contractor. What you see here, the entire process here is a process of quality control. The architect has the right to request for the relevant informations or to test or to have the evidence that the qualities are meeting the requirement. The contractors are to provide the materials and the workmanship as per the requirement. The best outcome it will be the contractor meeting the requirement, and this will save a lot of problems at the later stage. However, if the quality is not met, there will be consequences to the contractor. The relevant costs due to the inspection and testing will be borne by the contractor, as well as the cost of the rectifications will also be borne by the contractor. There is no way for the contractor that refuse to pay for those work, as the employer can simply offset the payment which is supposed to be given to the contractor. It is up to the employer whether to hire somebody else to do the rectification work. The cost will also be borne by the contractor because it is the fault of the contractor not meeting the requirement. It is either due to his negligence or dishonesty or even his incompetence. Whichever reason it is, not meeting the requirement as per the contract document is not acceptable. There is one more thing about this flow chart. The flow chart is constructed on basis of the second conditions when the goods and materials are not in accordance to the contract. We know that whether it is claimable or not claimable, there is another conditions, and this is also due to the reasonable doubt by the architect in terms of the performance or honesty or the track record of the contractor, and whether the cost it is claimable or not claimable due to the testing and making good of the testing. If the root cause is due to the contractor, that means the contractor has to take the full responsibility. Also, although we have 3 areas where the architect can make the request as a process to regulate the standards and quality of the material, it is totally justifiable by the architect to make all 3 requests here. That will be the conservative conditions or extreme conditions. It will be up to the wisdom of the architect whether to call for all 3 requests, or call for any 2 requests, or call for any one of the requests, or even fully believe the contractor not providing any request of this. The ultimate goal here is to ensure the standards are met in order to protect the right of the employer. The architect may have mechanism to creatively achieve that. Therefore, it is not a must for the architect to make all 3 requests or at least 1 request, and so on and so forth.